Yeah.
urgent.
Welcome once again to another live stream. This is Modern Sales Meltdown with David Chernick and Gareth Wax with many hats. We talk about sales in the modern world, and today is no exception. What is today's topic, David Chernick?
Has sales lost its soul?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's a kind of like a conundrum that I'm faced with daily now from my clients and people that come to me for help. It's that sort of balance between authenticity and performance. And, you know, with AI writing scripts and salespeople being trained really to perform like actors, we're wondering, is the real human element in sales being pushed out?
Well, I can add to that. I mean, if I can, being the marketing end of this mission, and given that I specialize in an area known as LinkedIn, and at the moment, seeing that as the front end of the push, you've got messaging being put out there, which is obviously ChatGPT, and then people responding to the messaging using ChatGPT. So one could argue that humanity is disappearing from the marketing side of the equation.
I mean, I'm not complaining about that myself. Marketing, as we all know,
you don't like marketing anyway.
It's not that, no. I won't let you get away with that. I love marketing, right?
As you guys are my witness. Has David not said on a number of occasions you get something and then marketing ruins it?
Marketing ruins everything for everyone. Yeah, I do say that. However, we need marketing. Marketing are really the conversations that we have that help us find the deals that we want to try and close, right?
Well, that's a great theory, but when marketing is talking from machine to machine,
is that not just a means to an end? Can we not just like deliver qualified opportunities into a pipeline?
You do sound like you should be on the list.
People are going to check those qualification criteria anyway, right? So as soon as they land in our pipeline, we are going to be asking things about budget, timeframes, and their overall thing they're trying to achieve, right? And then we get into the flow of where I feel and that I advocate for, which is the sort of more emotionally intelligent conversations, where, you know, we can delve into each other's psyche, where our personalities play our part, where we develop things like trust. Yeah. So, you know, before it gets to the human bit, you know, however we can get our visibility, however we can find genuine opportunities to do business. You know, you know that I'm really into referral marketing for that at the moment, but, you know, I recognize that I need to do, and a lot of us focus a lot on, you know, the sort of email marketing and social media marketing, and I almost said spamming, but spamming and posting and all of that kind of stuff, advertising and whatnot. But once you are in a position where you want to put them in a pipeline, you have a proper conversation with them about what they want to buy, that is the point at which we want to engage our humans. Now, that's not to say that with the marketing journey in that whole conversation, we don't want that to be reflective of the human they're going to be speaking to during the sales bit. Of course, if they're engaging with a brand and then they get through to the live salesperson at the end of it, and they're two completely different conversations, different language, different values, then this is not going to work. So you do want your marketing, of course, to reflect the brand of whoever they're going to end up with. Yeah, that to me is actually part of the qualification. You know, looking for customers who will be more likely to convert, looking for the prospects to be more likely to convert once they get into the pipeline. It's useless to me if my marketing generates a whole pile of people into my pipeline but they're going to be people that would never countenance doing business with me. Yeah.
Well, it's just to me, it seems like the soul is going out of the whole process because there's not enough human oversight, really. And some of it you can sure, when you get down to the anus of it, you're still doing that. You're going to do it, you're not going to do it. Get that.
Yeah.
But to get there, a lot of the interactions are before the touches, the research, that's becoming more and more automated.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, there is, and we've talked about this before, but there is a degree here of the famous hype curve. And, for anybody that's interested, you can Google all of this. But, we are approaching, I think, in AI, certainly in the world of sales and marketing, a sort of almost a peak of inflated expectations, I think.
It's at the point where, because up until now nobody's really had a clear idea of what to use everything for, so as people keep coming up with new funky ideas, maybe this is the way, maybe that's the right thing to do, and they keep throwing new things at it, and as you say, we're going to get to a point where we end up with a morass of the core stuff that it can do, where everything else will end up just falling off.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of phases of that hype curve to get through first. Yeah, because at the moment we're all piling in. We are approaching, as I think they call it, the peak of inflated expectations. There's a big drop off usually with new emerging technologies after that, which we call the trough of disillusionment, where it didn't do anything, it's rubbish. Right, stop using it. But then we then sort of climb a slope, a less steep slope, but at a more manageable slope of enlightenment. Yeah, where we get to eventually some sort of plateau where we are actually performing and using the stuff properly. Okay,
I get you, and I would say that because it's AI we're talking about here in the mix, hitting that plateau will be faster.
Yeah. The whole thing looks like it could be pretty rapid. I mean, if you remember back to the days of the emergence of the internet, that was that took some years to reach the peak of disillusionment.
Scarily, I actually was involved with the birth of the internet, and in as much as I was working for indirectly for a university whose own network became a part of what became what we refer to as the internet.
Was this when Sun Microsystems started giving away systems for free to all the institutions in the hope that everyone could use their stuff? Right?
Yes. Use our gear, be tied in for life. We'll see how well they fare now. So
bringing it back to sales, then I think that's really the differentiator between people who are selling similar sorts of products to each other is going to be more on that human side. It's all very well dealing with an organization that has good reviews and that has a degree of trust, but depending on what you're buying, if it's anything other than a commodity, we want to be able to eyeball somebody.
No, but you say all this, and I keep coming across more and more service providing organizations who are trying to use AI as a way of obviating some of that.
Yeah, look, I have no doubt that at some point in the future, and maybe not in that far the distant future, that all of that personalization will be pretty easy for AI to be able to swallow and do for itself. That's cool. But at the moment, as we are approaching that peak of disillusionment and about to go probably into that trough of disillusionment, a peak of expectation, peak of
expectation, trough of disillusionment. Lovely.
At that point, this is where we really want to be able to hone our human competencies.
It does sound like a very bougie nightclub. The trough of disillusionment.
It is quite bougie. It's good fun, and there are two reasons why we want to be investing heavily in the sort of the human competencies. One is, of course, to be able to survive in the meantime. During which time we can be developing, real systems and our use of systems to automate. But it means that when we then start creeping out of that trough of disillusionment, as we become more enlightened, we will have much greater control over how we are programming these bots to perform as if they are us and to an optimized version of us.
Do you know what I can see not in far distant in the horizon? When people are writing up their bios and about their companies and what they do and how they work, they'll state as a bulleted benefit as non-AI salesman.
Yeah. Look, they can be worse or better as well. You know, I mean, I everybody knows that my side hustle is DJing, and I was recently on a radio show that was hosted by some young people with special needs. And you know, they wanted to play some song requests of mine, so I gave them some song requests. Of course, they broadcast on YouTube, and they immediately, I think, got demonetized, and then I think the YouTube went off, it closed it down. So they were used to playing music that was AI generated. Now, you know, we've talked about AI generated music before. It's very good. It is very good. It is soulless.
I'm not going to make a comment because I think you're wrong, because it depends on the definition of the word soul. I presented a piece of AI bit of music that I'd worked on, but an AI piece of music to a gentleman who currently represents Dr. Dre's son, who is a credible influence in hip hop in the States, and they could not tell that it was AI generated. Not a clue.
Yeah, well, look, there was I think it was a couple of years, or at least a year and a half now, with the Beatles track that was created by AI. Was it Now and Then or something? Yeah, so it is absolutely possible, but for a lot of people, it feels soulless and less memorable. Now, there are going to be some differences depending on how our brains are wired, of course. Yeah, what I think of as soulless is going to be different to what you, as an autistic person, might feel is soulless. Yeah, indeed, our very definitions of what soul in music or sales or communication itself will be different. Okay, so all that means, though, is that there is space for a diversity in how you do the selling. My point is that having good human competencies, so being able to generate trust, being able to delve into somebody's mind and have open conversations, helps in two ways. One is it will help you survive the next period of time as we approach the peak of inflated expectations and the trough of disillusionment before we emerge into that period of enlightenment, right? To survive in that time, and so that when we approach that enlightenment period, we are much better prepared for it. We can program AI to do what we want it to do. Yeah,
I think I'm copywriting Todd, or the Trough of Disillusionment, as the name of my next club.
The Trough of Disillusionment, a bitter old squalid goth boozer.
Doesn't it? Does it not sound like that? It sounds like the Slime Light, actually. I used to go to the Slime Light a lot.
The Lizard Lounge.
Absolutely. Look, guys, as you can see, this whole move towards automation, large AI modeling, and so on, is really throwing all the cards up in the air. And what I would say to everyone is, once we get into that trough and it starts leveling out, because that's where it goes to, hits the trough and then starts gradually plateauing and finding a level. And once we're there, the very things that might differentiate you and the business you represent could be those human qualities. So remembering how to do your ABCs, remembering how to do 1 + 1, all these basic skills, those same basic skills in sales. Understanding the basic skills in sales could be the whole thing that differentiates your organization from all the others that have gone headlong into the AI pit. I don't know what you think about that, David, but I think having differentiators is absolutely key to gaining interest.
100%. The best differentiator is what comes from your soul, what comes from you as a human being.
Although we might discuss at a different date what exactly that soul is, because I'm a little bit at a loss to know what it's about at all. I love numbers and I love regularization and the rest of it. So hence why I'm a percussionist, because percussion is just numbers after all. And the thing is that within the sales process, the only bit that really matters is when they say, "Oh yes, I'd like to take 3 of those."
I buy that for $1.
That's it. That is the only bit that matters. So to get there, where there are willing participants and feel like they're part of a human process, I still think you're right. I think that's so important.
Yeah, look, you can think of it like electronic music, that you can have a drum beat, a drum machine. Was it the 808?
The good old 808. Yeah.
Right. And you can get that right in the pocket. Okay. Yeah. Program it. It will do it just right. But without a melody, right? Without a melody, with imperfections in the melody, then I feel like it loses its soul and is going to be less memorable. And people are going to feel less attached to it. So if you want people to become attached to your brand and to you personally, and to do deals with you, regardless of all your faults, and I'll just give a very quick example. Back in the day, we used to think of 3 main dynamics that are happening in sales that you can influence. And we used to say to people, you know, you can either have it cheap, you can have it quick, or you can have it quality. Pick 2.
Yeah,
right?
Only 2.
So if you want it quick and you want it good, you're going to have to pay for it. If you want it cheap and you want it good, then you might have to wait. But there's a 4th dimension, and that 4th dimension is trust, and trust will supersede any of the other 3. You know, you will sacrifice for a lot of things, the quality, in order to deal with people who you trust. You'll pay a bit more for something if you want to deal with somebody that you trust, and you will wait a little bit longer to deal with somebody that you trust.
All right. Well, I'm going to finish off with an interesting musical reference. Blue Monday, which everybody might recognize by New Order, was one of the first times they'd really properly experimented using a drum machine, an 808, in fact, and the basic beat through it. But what makes it interesting and feel organic is Peter Hook's bass line, which is not at all programmed and is literally him playing it. And that's what lifts it from being a regularized piece of electronica to having a human organic element. Maybe, guys, take a listen to it. That came out in 1983, to put a timeline on it. But it still, to me, stands up to this day. And it's partially because of that element to it.
Yeah, I watched a very good and recent documentary on that. Only recently on YouTube. So you can hit me up if you want the link.
Okay, well, guys, thank you so much for spending this time with us. We're trying to puzzle it out. Hopefully some of our musings help you to regularize the way in which you do it. But of course, we always recommend that you jump in and give us messaging and feedback. But until next time, try and keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and look after that mental health. Take care until next week. Bye-bye.
Ciao.